guys. Welcome to another edition of the Maker's Notebook. My name is Stacy, and I co-host with my sister Tracy usually, but she's traveling currently on vacation, and she probably wouldn't be back till the middle of July. And I didn't want to wait until then to present my FOs, only because it'll be too many. And I really wanted to talk to you about one of the FOs, which I test netted for Amy Sher, called the Phoebe top, which has now been released. And so I just wanted to jump on quickly and talk about these two projects. Tracy, I hope, will also record an edition where she's talking about her FOs, and we'll try to get it up here. Hopefully she gets time to do it. If not, that's fine. I mean, at least we wouldn't have so many when she gets back to talk about, and we end up with like a 2 hour long episode. Anyway, I'm coming to you from a very hot, it's supposed to be like in the 90s. We're having this heat dome effect on the East Coast. And it's clear blue skies though in North Carolina. We're more on the Charlotte side. Outside of that, so yeah, it gets pretty hot and pretty gross out there. Anyway, I wanted to quickly talk about, I did go to Japan. I think most of you might have seen that I did from, and by the way, it's kind of hard to do this alone. I always think about, if I was doing it alone, it might be easier, but without Tracy, I feel like now that I'm actually doing it, it's a bit harder to keep my thoughts, Anyway, so yeah, I did end up going to Japan, and that, was an amazing trip. I've been to a few places, not many, but I've been to England, I've been to Germany and Spain, Denmark, where else? And then in the Caribbean islands, obviously, Mexico, Trinidad, of course, where I'm from, and Guyana in South America. And I gotta say, hands down, Japan is probably one of my favorite places. And we've been back about 2 weeks now, almost 2 weeks. And I just cannot get that trip out of my head. I want to go back. Like, if I can go back today, I would. I loved it so much. It's the haven for stationery lovers. Like, the stationery abounds. It's the mecca for it. And the shopping is next level. Like, just all the brands. I'll try to pop in some photographs as I'm talking. I can't even tell you the shopping. Like, I don't know. And then I would even dare say, and I've lived in California and New Jersey and, frequented going to New York and stuff. It doesn't even compare. I know. If you ever get the chance, and right now, I mean, probably the most expensive part of your trip would be your flight and hotel, maybe not even that much. I mean, you can do that on the cheap. And the shopping, like the exchange rate, just walk with another suitcase. I mean, we did. And still, I felt like we brought a lot, but I feel like, man, I could have brought more. And then just all the architecture, the palaces and shrines that everywhere. But more importantly, and we did go to Kyoto. We went to Kyoto, which was the original capital of Japan, and now it's Tokyo. But both places very busy, lots of people. But the one thing, and I would just say this and then we will move on, is that Japan, what I've seen, and we were in Tokyo, the people, phenomenal. Like, and I don't, I don't want to come off as like, it's like the best place on earth and there's no other good places. But from my experience, the level of respect I see, the way people treat each other really stood out to me. So that is one thing compared to like other places I've been to, you know, no tipping. So you go to a restaurant or anywhere, you eat, you pay, which the bill. Tipping is offensive, like you don't tip. I came back to America and I was like, oh, here we go again with the trying to figure out how much you should tip a person. And honestly, like my husband and I talk about it, and we feel like if you got a tip, like just don't take away the tipping system and just let the prices reflect what the tip would be. So say for instance, I buy a cup of coffee and it's like, I don't know, $5. And okay, you tip. I don't know what to tip. I mean, what, $1, 10%, 20%? Like, what do you do, right? And if they were to just include the tip right then and there, I mean, this will take the hassle. I know some people might say, oh, no, they'll just make it more expensive. But honestly, I really hate tipping because I hate trying to figure out like what that should be. So it was really refreshing not to have to deal with that at all. So that was great. And, aside from the people and just the level of respect, it's just the level of not only respect to each other, but in the thing that they're doing. So even if they're, working in a restaurant or working behind a counter or, just pulling a rickshaw, it's all done with a quality, a level of respect and just care, which, I came back here and I took my son and his friend to McDonald's for the first time. My son, he never had McDonald's. Well, he did have the fries. I think he had McDonald's from another friend when they brought him McDonald's, but we don't normally give him McDonald's. But this time I decided to, we did say we would let him try it just to take the curiosity out for him. And he tried it the other day. And the girl, she called our number and her attitude, I mean, she was just slumped all over the counter and just not happy, and what she's doing. And of course, they're not going to, if you're not happy doing what you're doing, then there's no care in how you put together the food and how you present it. And in Japan, when they present anything, it's always like even with the receipt, they, give it to you with two hands and with a bow. And I feel like it just shows that in doing that, they have like a level of respect for the person, the customer. And then it just translates to the care in what they do. I mean, the way they wrap we bought some gifts, and the way they wrapped it, it's with precision and care and just, I wanted to videotape it. Anyway, I could rant on and on about the trip, but that's mostly what I wanted to say. Just the level, the care and everything they do and how they interact with people is just phenomenal. Anyway, so I'm wearing the Coloring Book Tee by Amy Sher, and I used the Amano Chasqui yarn that I got from Hearts on Fiber, my local yarn shop. And this yarn is 60% superwash merino wool, 30% Pima cotton, and 10% linen, and it's made in Peru. This color is color 1707 and it comes 100 grams equals 383 yards. It's a fingering weight yarn. And with the Pima linen, it just makes it a nice summer friendly product to wear. Uh, Especially in this area, Charlotte, I can probably get away with wearing this all year. Except if when it gets too hot like it is today. We're in this heat dome. So it'll be too hot to wear outside. Inside is fine, like in the air condition, but outside it might be too hot. But what I love about this pattern, again, might have said it already, it's my second iteration. This pattern, my first iteration with Woolfolk yarn fingering, I wear it all the time. All the time. And this I see wearing all the time as well. It's next to skin good. And there's so many modifications you can make to this pattern. I always choose short sleeve versus Tracy, who always chooses long sleeve. But I chose short sleeve because I just don't like, I feel like I will wear it more. Because if it's long sleeve, then I don't know. I feel like I just wouldn't get to wear it as much because it'll get hot. Because North Carolina doesn't get that hot, really. I mean, cold, sorry. It doesn't get that cold. If I was in New York or somewhere where it gets really cold, then long sleeves I would want a long sleeve version of this. But, so it's a top down raglan, so you cast on, and then you do the raglan increases and so on, and then you get, she has you knit it to, I think 10.5 inches or so. Let me look at I think the total, let me take a quick look, 12 inches, yeah. So from underarm to the end of ribbing, it's usually, she has you knitted for 12 inches, but I did 13 inches. I feel like that falls a little better on me. And the ease is like perfect. I love the way the sweater fits so much. I don't even know how, I'm probably saying it too many times. I knit the size B, which is a 38-inch finished measured bust, and the gauge is 24 stitches and 32 rounds in stockinette for 4 inches. I knitted the view A, which is short sleeves and cropped body, but I didn't do the cropped. I just knitted it for 13 inches. And I'm trying to see, the recommended ease at the full bust is 3 to 5 inches. So I used the needle A it calls for, which is the 24 stitches and 32 rounds. I used a US 4 needles, which is what the pattern calls for. And then there's a B needle for the ribbing, and I used a US 2, which is what the pattern calls for. And there's a side detail here, which I like. Every time I see a sweater without the side detail, I feel like I should do it still, modify it to include these, because I think it just structures better. And then I did the ribbing here, as you'll see. I did it longer than I did the ribbon here. I didn't want this to come up too much, so I just did this for like 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches. And then the sleeves, you just pick back up the stitches that's on hold, and you just did a few rounds, do the ribbing. I did a stretchy bind off here, and then on the bottom. And right, so once you finish the body, you can go back here and you'll pick up stitches which are not on hold. You pick those up, the amount she tells you, and then you just do the ribbing going around. And that's all she wrote, right? And her modifications, there's a view B where you can make longer sleeves. You can do stripes, right? I'm not a big stripe person. I feel like stripes look strange on me personally. I like the solid colors. Uh, you can do a trim of an accent color on the top, before you bind off on the top, around the neck, around the sleeves, and on the body. You could do that. So many modifications you can do. Like, I I see why Stephanie at Edible Thoughts make so many versions of it, because you can just every time you knit it, it'll be a different sweater, because it's just, even though it's the same pattern, you can just make so many modifications. Similar to like the Tolster tee, um, that I've knit also by another designer. I forgot her name. Flash it here. Anyway, I had three skeins of this, and I only used two, and this is what I had left. So totally, you can 383 yards per skein times two is enough to knit this top. Okay, I'm gonna pause right here and go get Phoebe top. Guys, okay, I'm back with the Phoebe top test knit that I did for Amy Sure. The pattern is now released, and you should be able to get it through her website, which I'll link below, or via Ravelry. This top is a fingering weight. I used Amy Sure actually has a shop, and she sells yarn, and she has this Wool Dreamers Sowona yarn. It's 240 yards for 50 grams, and it's 50% Lana Merino and 50% Algodón de Andalucía. I'll try to look up and see what that really means. And I'll flash it here, just so you know. Anyway, the color is called Notes. It's a off-white color, and man, I never think of buying off-white yarn, but I do enjoy wearing this color. So let's talk about the pattern. It's obviously cable knit. It's knit in pieces. So you knit the front, you knit the back, and then you seam it together with a mattress stitch, both the shoulders and the sides. And it's a bottom up construction. So you start off with the ribbing and then the cables, and you go up, you do some shaping. She has instructions for both the straight and curvy figures, and I chose the straight because my bust size is like I don't know, 34. So the straight version worked for me. And then you do an I-cord finishing here and on the around here, around the armholes. And let me see what else I gotta say. I knit the size B, which is a 34.25 bust measurement. And again, like I said, the straight version, which works out to be a 34-inch finished bust circumference, versus the curvy, which has another 3/4 inches of, to accommodate. She says to select up to 1 inch of negative ease in the full bust for this to fit comfortably, but the intended ease is it's like zero ease, okay? What else? The gauge is 28 by 32 rows for 4 inches, and I use the needle US 3 needles for my main needles, and then US 1.5s for the ribbing. You can modify this pattern by making it longer, shorter. So, that's an option. She gives you so much information, like to modify to make it your own. The body length here is 9.75. I think I did a couple extra. Um, think I did another inch or two because um, I didn't want it to be too cropped. And I believe my gauge was a little off. I met row gauge, stitch gauge, but not the rows. So I had to keep that in mind when knitting this. And I didn't want the armhole to be too low because I hate that. I wanted to fit just right. And it worked out perfectly here. There's no gap and it's not tight on me. So I was lucky. It was perfect. So, and that's the only mod I made was to make this a little longer because of my row gauge and because I didn't want it as cropped. And then um, I'm trying to remember. I think I did some modifications up here. Oh, it's been a while. But anyway, the key is just to take your measurements and take your swatch and just measure. And just as you knitting, just make sure that, the length you want this to be, like it works. And I love how this comes just right there and it's not like too high. That's perfect to me. And what else do I want to say? Yeah, and this, yeah, it's a sloped bind off. I have on a tank top on but it's a sloped bind off and then you match your stitch up here. The yarn itself is it's interesting to work with. You cannot be a tight knitter. You cannot, if you're a tight knitter, you don't want to pull on it too hard because it breaks very easily. So just be mindful of that if you decide to use this yarn in any of your projects. The cable pattern is very simple. It's two of them, this size and then the smaller one, and it's just repetitive. So it's very easy to keep track, to do the cables without looking. Eventually you'll memorize it. And the only thing I would say if you knit this pattern is to keep track. You'll have to create some sort of tracker to keep track of your rows and where you are. I mean, this was mine. So otherwise, like, I'm not sure how you would keep track of where you are. It's like you need to do that. I would say this pattern is not for a beginner, mostly because of keeping track, the cabling, and not that that is hard, but keeping track of where you are in the pattern with the cabling. You have to kind of keep track of all your rows. So that might be the only challenging thing. But so maybe an adventurous beginner, but definitely somebody who's, has a little experience knitting garments for sure. I highly recommend her patterns. The ones I've knitted, which is that coloring book tee and this one, I'm trying to think if there's another one I've knitted, but they fit so well, Amy Sher's patterns. And the patterns, the quality of how it's written, the details is really, oops, that's my glasses. The details are really all there. It's a lot of pages, but it's for so many views. She tells you to print out she tells you what pages to print out if you only want a certain view. And honestly, I love how she runs her task patterns, and I am actually, I would love to test out more of her patterns because she's very like, you know, not to say other people aren't, but she's very organized in her process on how she relays the community she forms through the task collaboration is like wonderful. She's responsive and just her process is just it's very streamlined. So I would certainly love to test knit more of her patterns. But in general, I am swatching for the oolong tank that I plan to cast on. I can't wait. It's this yarn I got from Hearts on Fiber that's so silky, so beautiful. I've showed it before on another podcast. And I can't wait to show you. I can't wait to get going on that, to show you guys. And another thing I'm working on, which has more priority over that oolong tank, is the sweater I'm knitting using the Hearts on Fiber kit that I got. I showed it last podcast by Catherine Seeberger. It's the cardigan that's like a quilt style, quilt blocks. So that cardigan, I have 30 something of those to make up, and I'm only at 3. And that's because on the plane to Japan, it's a long flight, it's 13 hours, but it's dark on the plane. So yeah, I didn't get to knit at all on the plane. I did get to watch the first 4 episodes of Bridgerton, and wow, that was racy. Some of it I had to, not as racy as the first season, but I had to like turn my screen so other people sitting diagonally to the back of me didn't see my screen. And then my son was sitting to the right, and I was like, ugh, I had to turn it like this to look at it. But I have the other 4 episodes to take a look at. I actually like this season. I didn't, okay, so I liked the first season. I didn't like the second season. The girl, who that, the Duke or whatever his name is, not Duke, he's not a Duke. The main character, that girl kind of annoyed me a little bit. I don't know why. I don't know. Yeah, and maybe she was too perfect. I don't know. She kind of came off that way, right? I don't know, something. But this season, really, I like it. It's pretty good, and I can't wait to watch the next 4 episodes. I did read this week the book by Nicholas Sparks called The Wish. It's a book club pick for my community book club, which is meeting Friday. And I did not read it on the plane either. You think 13 hours and you're like, oh, such a long flight, but I didn't find it to be long. Like I thought it was fine. Um, so 13 hours I spent going watching Bridgerton and just thinking. I didn't do much actually on the plane. And then coming back, I didn't really do much. I did watch the show Dune. But anyway, back to The Wish. I started it on Monday and I finished it on Tuesday for the most part. I only had like 2 more pages to read on Wednesday. That book, I mean, I've read The Notebook by the same author, and it was really like that book stayed with me to this day. And I've read that book like years and years, like over 20 years ago. Gotta be. And so I recommend it. It's pretty good. It draws you in. It's 380 pages or so, give or take. And it's a page turner. It's sad. It will have you a little weepy, but pretty good. The characters, like the way it was told through one character the whole time, and then towards the end, the another character, the last chapter, it was read from that person, and that was quite interesting, and it made me think about the Outer Banks. A lot of his stories take place at the Outer Banks area. This one was the Ocracoke Island, and I've never heard of it, and now maybe one day I hope I get to see it. Anyway, I did get some yarn from Japan. I didn't get to go to the Daruma shop, which is in the southern part of Tokyo where we were, because we were with people and we had an itinerary packed with things, so we didn't get to go. But I did get to go near Shibuya. I was on Instagram watching another Japanese person who likes to crochet and stuff, and she mentioned this yarn shop. It's called Amimono Alfasha here shop, and it's walking distance from the Shibuya crossing, one of the areas in Tokyo. And I did the Shibuya crossing, and then my daughter and I, we walked up about 15 minutes. A lot of walking. I swear. We did like 14,000 to 20,000 steps a day. I'm like, I need this. I need to walk like this every day. But, living out in the burbs, I barely probably get 2,000 steps, honestly. Because even walking around the house is not enough. Um, I don't know. You know, I know I'm veering off, but one of the reasons why we wanted to move from the previous house is because we wanted to live somewhere that was more walkable. And we ended up again in a similar type area in another town over, and still we didn't end up where we wanted to be, more near a downtown area where we can walk out, do a lot of walking. Um, we didn't end up there. We end up back similar to where we were before. So obviously, like, there's no walking. Ideally, whenever our next place where we would like to live, I would like it to be somewhere that's you walk for everything. I mean, Japan, it's like up and down steps, like it's so much walking, like lots of steps, lots. Like you realize how fit or unfit you are based on having to run up and down those steps to get to the trains and stuff. Anyway, so we walked through this area. It was like meandering. It was pretty cool about Tokyo, where we were, to get to the yarn shop from the main Shibuya area crossing. You have to walk through this like neighborhood, like back way, and you would think it's a residential place, but it's more like it has little shops tucked in there. It's so cute. And anyway, we went in there, my daughter and I, and the owner was really, I think it was the owner, and she was very nice. Usually you have to pay for bags, but with all my purchases, she was like, "Oh no, I'll give you a bag." So anyway, I bought yarn for Tracy, which I ended up giving to her as a birthday gift. Her birthday is next week, and I got some yarn as well, for no project in particular. But I promise I will show you when Tracy comes back, because then I can get her to show her yarn as well, and we'll show you what we bought. So that particular yarn shop only sells her yarn, her brand. So she doesn't have other brands there. So I wanted to explore more yarn stuff, but because it was so fast paced, we were there 9 days. So fast paced and with other people to consider, I didn't get to go to Daruma, the Amarusu shop, and I didn't get to go to some of the other places that sell yarn, like the little department stores. I didn't get to do that because my daughter and I, we were like totally shopping for stationery, the travelers factories. We went to all, well, except the one at Narita Airport, because we didn't use that airport to fly in and out of. But all the other travelers factory we went to, and oh man, so good. And even the Starbucks Reserve, they have a collaboration with Travelers Notebook. And so we got some Travelers Starbucks themed items. I am so grateful to have had the opportunity to get this experience going to Japan. And I know we'll get to go back one day because we all loved it so much. um, so that's it for now. I can wax on and on about that trip, but I'll spare you. Highly recommend if you have if you're on the fence about going to Japan, totally do it. Totally, you won't regret it. The food, the things to do abound. Like I feel like you would have to live there in order to really, get all of it in. Totally, like how we lived in California. We when we lived in California, it was for 5 years, and we lived like we were tourists, meaning every week we were doing like we were going and doing and seeing and eating the things, having the full experience. So when we leave, it's you know. So we all my family and I wouldn't mind living in Japan a couple of years. That would be extraordinary. Anyway, I'm a wanderer at heart. I don't like staying in one place too long. So anyway, that's it. Uh, I'll try to come again. I did a test knit for Tammy Gore. It's a shawl, and I'll probably pop on when that pattern is released. Um, I'm not sure when she's going to release it. I believe it's the end of a week or so, and I'll try to come back on at that time to tell you all about it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And thank you for your feedback about our last episode, the location, Tracy's fancy setup. We probably would, since you guys love it so much, well, two of you guys, we'd probably start podcasting over there next from now on because it's all set up, so we don't have to worry about lighting and all of that. So until then, take care and have a good summer. Stay cool, and we'll see you soon.